Hi, it's Artie from Brown Bear Herbs. Today I wanted to talk to you about True Solomon Seal because it is back in stock. I love True Solomon Seal. I would say it is definitely one of my top 10 herbs. And I stock it not because it's really related to my other products, but just because it is such a good herb and it is rather hard to find prepared the way that I feel like is most beneficial. So I prepare it with high proof alcohol and using the fresh root. And the farm that I get it from biodynamically harvests and uses organic practices. So it's a really high quality tincture when you get it from me, and I just have a hard time finding it in commerce. So I want to be able to have certain herbs for you when I do consultations, and it's no good to recommend an herb if a person can't find it. I've been in that situation myself, and it's kind of like, great, thanks for the advice. Now I'm back to where I was to begin with. So mostly, I most often recommend this for joint issues. Often for back injuries or back issues, I use it in combination with other herbs. It is an herb that is able to adjust ligaments. True Solomon Seal is most effective at adjusting larger joints, whereas what is sometimes known as false Solomon Seal or Smilacina racemosa or Smilacina stellata, the native to the Pacific Northwest, which is endangered, so don't harvest it yourself. That one is better for small joints like fingers and toes. But sometimes you might test as being more suited to having one or the other, regardless of joint size. So they do, if you have ligaments that are too loose, like they've been stretched out through pregnancy or through an injury or something else that's going on, the herb tightens up the ligament, and if the ligaments are too tight for some reason, then it relaxes the ligament, and it works like magic. It is truly unbelievable. And so it can even help with things like bunions or something like that, because it's actually like ligaments are pulling in the wrong places. And let's see, my favorite day-to-day use for it is if I bump a joint, like fall on my knee or bump a finger joint. I use my hands aggressively all the time with making things, and it's not uncommon for me to get a joint injury. So when I use that, my favorite remedies for joint injury is going to be True Solomon Seal, yarrow, angelica, and rosemary. And I'll tell you why I use all those, and that's a little gift for you, because you will watch and be amazed at your own injuries just disappearing, because a lot of times we just get into this mindset like it's going to take, my body will heal, but it'll take like 6 weeks or something like that. It's not true. So the angelica is good for the immediate bruise. Often there's a residual bruise, like a small clot inside a blood vessel that is causing some of the swelling in a joint, and yarrow will help with those little tiny blood clots. I find it's very effective, super effective for that with joint injuries. Often I'll forget the yarrow until I've tried everything else, and then I'll find that that was the culprit, because when I apply the yarrow by tincture form, usually just externally, the swelling goes down that last little bit. So angelica for the initial bruise, yarrow for the blood clots in the small vessels, and then rosemary for the kind of fluid that leaks out, and Cutie's here. Hi guys. Okay, so then I live in Portland, and so there's tons of rosemary growing everywhere. So rosemary, really good at cleaning out like swelling in the joint from fluid buildup in the joint, which can happen as your body's trying to rush in fluid to kind of support healing the injury, And yeah, so I just tend to, sometimes I make a salve out of rosemary, which is like, if you're just doing it for like, you can do that with dried rosemary. You can make a salve with dried rosemary where you put some olive oil on your stovetop in a little dish, and then put a bunch of dried rosemary in there and let it sit for a couple weeks. Or it's coming into summer, so you can set it on your windowsill summer where you get some warmth coming in, which is better. You don't want to like cook the oil, but you just want it to be like warmed so that the oils will release in there. And then you can strain that and use it as an oil, or you can add in melt in shavings of beeswax, and then that will, when it cools down, solidify into salve. And you just test as you go with that. You add more and more beeswax until and then you add beeswax, and then you take like a drop and put it on a cool surface, like a spoon or something, and see if it cools to the like hardness you want for your salve. Because some people like a just barely solid, and some people want it to be hard. So that's how you do the salve. And then, but you can also just, if you have an injury right then and you want to use rosemary, you could chew up some fresh rosemary and rub it on your owie. If that hurts, you could also make a rosemary tea from stuff in your cooking cabinet or down the street if you live where I do. And you can soak a washcloth in hot tea and let it cool enough so that you can put it on your injury, and that'll just help. That'll really help. But the thing that I feel like helps the most is that injury, no doubt, like really knocked on your joint, whichever joint it is. It did something where it basically like pushed the joint apart or shoved it in or something like that. And so that irritated the ligament. And so I always like to put a few drops of True Solomon Seal on the joint itself, and then take a few drops. It's just, you don't need much. It's a precious herb in my mouth. And just, I feel like by putting it on the joint itself, it's kind of telling the herb, this is where I want you to do your work. And then I take it internally as well. And I feel like such a huge wave of relief immediately with True Solomon Seal and Angelica for those injuries. And then with back problems, I like to combine it with it depends what's going on with your back. If you're having nerve pain, there's herbs for that. And then muscle spasms, valerian. And then if you're having bulging discs, then there's remedy that I mix in for that as well. So you can make a lot of progress on back injuries and back strain very quickly. So, but you really only need a little bit. So like a typical back injury remedy that I would do would be involving like golden seal, True Solomon Seal, St. John's wort, and then sometimes I do valerian, but a lot of times I'll do that separately because the dosing for valerian is often like 30 to 90 drops, and the dosing for the other herbs is much different. Like golden seal and True Solomon Seal, both of those I use about like 1 or 2 drops. Golden seal's endangered as well. And then St. John's wort, I might use like 6 to 10 drops per dose. So overall, you're getting like a 8 to 10 drop dose with the remedy, True Solomon Seal, Golden Seal, and St. John's wort. But those are all like very tricky herbs to work with because both St. John's wort and True Solomon Seal need to be tinctured when threshed, or you're not going to get the medicinal properties. And then Golden Seal, you really only want to use what you actually need. So a drop or 2 twice a day is totally sufficient. But Golden Seal really helps tone up the bulging discs. I used it myself. It was freaking amazing. I have had sciatica issues on and off, more so when I was younger and I did like more heavy lifting through work. And and play. I like to do some gardening and can get overzealous. So I had the sciatica stuff, and I found some yoga exercises that were really helpful for that. Self-adjustment of the spine from Yogi Bhajan. If you can find that and do that for 40 days, that is extremely helpful. You have to pretty much be out of pain before you can do that, but I'm telling you that set my back straight. And literally, and in terms of not being in pain. And then after 4 or 5 years or something, sometimes that comes back, and then I just do it again for another 40 days, and then I'm back in action for much longer. Yeah. So I had that, and then with that one, not only did I do the yoga, but I did the True Solomon Seal, St. John's Wort, and valerian root. That really helped me at that time. Then later, I didn't know what was going on, but my back was hurting again, and I went to various practitioners, and they were like, you're fine because your back's not out of alignment. And then finally one of them was like, that means, or I'm feeling this, and based on what you're saying, you're not having anything out of alignment. That's a bulging disc. And I started taking the St. John's Wort, True Solomon Seal, and then adding Golden Seal. I think after like 5 days, I was fine. My body really knows how to heal. But I was just like, wow, because I hear so many people that are, getting ready for surgery all the time. And I'm just like, whoa, slow down. So I'll think about making a remedy for the shop for that, because it's really useful. Anyways, so yeah, I normally think of True Solomon Seal. I feel like I'm a little bit meandering with this one, but it's overall just like amazing for joints. And sometimes it can be helpful for blood pressure, liver support, and some hormonal things as well, and prolapse, because if it's related to ligaments being stretched, so like uterine prolapse or prolapse of other organs if it's from ligaments being stretched. There's a lot of causes for uterine prolapse, and maybe I'll go into some other time. But yeah. So, and I was just reading, this is another useful one for premature ejaculation, which to me suggests maybe there's some kind of ligament issue that could be involved in why that's happening. So, yeah. But it is one that you, in order to get the best benefits of True Solomon Seal, you want to take it as a fresh root. So if you didn't like alcohol, you need to somehow get your hands on fresh root and freeze it or something like that. Like I would probably like pulverize it and put it in ice cubes and take it when I wanted to, but you only need a little bit. So I think you could also maybe make some candies, like lozenges out of it. That would be a good way to preserve it if you're okay with sugar. And I think it actually helps with sugar balances a little bit too. So anyways, I'd say it's primarily a joint thing, but you could think of, if you start taking it and your blood pressure gets better too, then it might have been partly because the True Solomon Seal is helping out with that. I'm not going to say anything else about this herb. I think it's just super cool. I just feel like I hear so many people getting knee surgeries and back surgeries and this and that, and I've had some pretty bad joint injuries, and they just get better so fast. So nature's got your medicine for you, and now it's back in the shop. I hope you like this video. If you did, please like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Find our products at brownbearherbs.com.